Thanks for having me today, and really excited to give you guys a bit of a primer ahead of the panel coming up. And so what we thought would be useful is to focus a bit on the identity landscape as it sits today, mostly outside of OTT. And then that will help guide the conversation as we expect forward movement with a lot of these interesting solutions into OTT. So with that, I'll take you through kind of a brief presentation. So the first thing to note about the identity landscape is what we're going through is a bit of response to regulation, both at the government level, but more importantly, a bit of self-regulation. And that self-regulation is happening amongst many of the power brokers in the technology landscape. So Apple, Google, etc. Basically outlawing third-party cookies inside the browsers that they produce. And so what that means for the advertising ecosystem is now's an opportunity for us to build back better solutions outside of the third-party cookie. And more specifically, want to kind of double click into what this means for both advertisers and publishers. So from the advertiser's perspective, kind of the first order principles here are going to be your loss of some targeting capabilities, the size of the audience that they're able to address programmatically will shrink substantially. And then when you think more about second order effects, what that means is that shifts power back to walled gardens that largely get to retain their first party cookie space, their logged in users, etc. So you can imagine implications on the pricing basis, which has downward effects on performance for advertisers, so on and so forth. So this conundrum creates a pretty big challenge to solve on the demand side. And what that means is we're seeing a lot of advertisers begin experimentation, or we have seen a lot of advertisers begin experimentation on that front, and even more to come. So virtually like 97% of buyers are going to continue to invest at least at the same level they have, and about half are going to increase that investment in the coming year. So what that means is that's an exciting time for the publishers to start reaping some of the benefits of this early experimentation. But in order to do that, they will have to overcome a few challenges. So the first one, again, first order effects, is there's going to be a decay in revenue that came from the third-party cookie. But more importantly, there's going to be a new set of solutions coming to bear, and dealing with that new set of solutions creates a fragmented, complex working space for publishers to operate in. What that leads to is not only just a sense of inertia at the beginning, but really it creates duplicative costs on the legal front, on the development front, and on the operational front. So in order to contend with this, we see publishers experimenting in three different buckets around how to authenticate more of their audiences, how to activate more of these first-party data sets, and how to harness contextual data better. So basically we see publishers across the board leveraging one or more of these three paths. And so then to reframe this in terms of the real opportunity for open web participants, like this virtual conference, is quite a big opportunity for the open web to realize and to accelerate past walled gardens in terms of advertising technology competitiveness. So simply put, there's kind of two main dimensions to why the open web is good or better or worse than walled gardens. That would be quality of content and quality of data. I think historically what we've seen is that the quality of content is far better, far superior on the open web, and where we've lacked has come in quality of data. And the difference has largely been the signed in users or authenticated users. So as we move away from third-party cookies to first-party, the authenticated traffic is going to level the playing field on the data front, and essentially create an accretive opportunity for web participants to steal share back from walled gardens. So quite an exciting time as we address some of these fundamental challenges. Now, so what is what we see as like a best of breed approach as a technology vendor in this space? It's simply put, we need to take a portfolio approach here. And we see that portfolio along 4 different dimensions. So the first one is helping publishers to capture and identify known users. And so these known users come from both logged in, ones that they're able to create that kind of clear value exchange between their users and the product, but also probabilistic user identification. So it's basically using authenticated user signals, adding some contextual elements as well to develop a higher likelihood of saying this is or is not a given user. So this is one of the 2 solutions that drives towards targeting at the user level in the absence of third-party cookie. The second would be first-party cookies. And so a lot of these tend to be site-specific. So again, you can target these first-party users at an individual site level. And additionally, as a technology vendor, one thing that we're very focused on is helping the publishers activate against these first-party data sets. Activate means how do you present it, package it to the buy side in order to drive more transactions. Thirdly, is a return to a standard buying tactic, which is contextual advertisement. So I kind of define contextual advertising broadly in the sense that it is all non-user level signals or non-user ID signals. And one thing we're seeing there is that segments can be created at DMP levels and within the DSP. All of this built atop these new alternative identifiers. So this is an area that we want to foster. And that leads to the last area, which is industry standards. And by and large, most of the industry standards that we're in support of and helping publishers and buyers develop POCs and to test have to do with creating cohorts. And these cohorts are made of these contextual segments that we just talked about. So think of them as in-market auto intenders, behavioral segments, etc. So these are kind of the 4 dimensions that we are approaching to help publishers and buyers navigate this change. And so, as I was mentioning, each participant that we see in this space is kind of finding their specialty, whether that be on the deterministic front, the probabilistic front, or in capturing contextual signals. And so the more we can simplify this landscape for publishers, the easier it is for them to lean in. And the more we can do for buyers to increase their addressable audience, the more they can transition budgets to this new buying mechanism. And that's largely been what we've been able to introduce with our Identity Hub solution, which is a management tool for publishers in order to work across these mini identity providers without having to duplicate those development, legal, operational costs. So it's, as I mentioned, a management tool for activating different identity partners, but also for monitoring their performance based on yield, et cetera. And what this has done in APAC is we've seen some outstanding success so far, just in the last year, where really the industry started moving, along these trends. So we have close to 60% of our publishers in APAC that are sending one or more of these alternative IDs, and a large share of that, so 40% of our publishers are using our own built solution, this Identity Hub solution, in order to simplify the management there within. So very exciting results. We have driven great successes, yield improvement for publishers, and seamless buying transition for buyers. And because of this adoption, what we've seen is alternative IDs or identity resolution providers have gained significant market share just by partnering with us on the Identity Hub solution. So with that, I want to hand it over to Jason Barnes to introduce our panel on this very topic.
Hi, thanks, Andrew. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to one of the most exciting panels that you're going to have today. We're talking about two of the hottest topics, which is CTV and identity, and we have a fantastic panel here to join us. So I will quickly introduce the panel to everybody. Firstly, we have David Sky, who is the Advertising Solutions Director at True Digital in Thailand. We have Cass Tan, who is the Head of Partnerships for APAC at Adobe. We have Travis Klinger, Senior Vice President, Addressability and Ecosystem at LiveRamp. And the gentleman you've just heard from, Andrew Barron, who's the Senior Vice President, Marketplace and Identity at PubMatic. Thank you, everybody. Welcome to the panel, and thanks for joining me today. Great. So to get things started off, let's look a little bit more macro. 4th of March this year, Google made a fairly significant announcement. They said that they will not be supporting independent identifiers within the Google ecosystem when they do away with third-party cookies, which will be sometime in 2022. So I think to get everybody warmed up, just interested in what your view is on the impact that this will have on the industry. And perhaps I can start with you, Cass.
Sure. Hi, Jason. Hi, everyone. Google's move only reinforces the need for brands to proactively develop first-party data strategies and evolve their use cases in preparation for the deprecation of the third-party cookie. Adobe is really well positioned to help marketers navigate this change and support whichever paths the digital marketing ecosystem follows via the capabilities embedded in Adobe Experience Platform, Real-Time CDP, and Adobe Advertising Cloud. Now, all the conversations that we've had with our customers are geared around what they can do now to prepare for this change. And that's looking at things like investing in a first-party ad stack, ensuring that consumer-first innovation is critical, the need to have deeper relationships with publishers, but also making sure that the development of people and processes support all this change as well.
Excellent. David, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, hi, Jason. Hi, everyone. Look, I think it's very similar from a publisher perspective. I think it really emphasizes but also accelerates that need to focus on building first-party data strategies and all the different types of technology considerations around that. I think from a True Digital perspective, our strength in market is our first-party data that we get from our telco and our e-wallet product, but also our loyalty program. And I think from a product perspective, our key properties in market are CTV and apps. So there isn't a massive impact there in terms of cookies within those environments. Okay,
good to hear. Travis, your views on the announcement?
Yeah, so I think the announcement really made a lot of noise, but in the grand scheme of things, I think most folks are the same today as they were before the announcement. We boiled the announcement down to 3 pieces. So first and foremost, Chrome is not going to block people-based identifiers. In fact, Google's Ad Exchange is going to pass those identifiers on. So publishers who want to use their first-party identity can pass those identifiers through the Google Ad Exchange to downstream SSPs and DSPs on the open internet. Now, Google did call out that their DSP, DV360, for open exchange buys is not going to transact on those identifiers. That's okay. I think most of us in the industry really never suspected DV360 to do that. I think for all of the open internet, SSPs and DSPs, that's really positive news because every brand who wants to buy an audience now has to go to different SSPs and DSPs to transact that. And then I think that, the third part is from a publisher perspective, Google is the world's largest publisher. YouTube and search have more authentications than any open internet publisher out there. And Google is really saying, even though it's going to have flocks and its cohort technology, and certainly publishers will have contextual, they're doubling down on authentication. and YouTube and search are going to be powered by an authenticated solution. I think this is a message to every publisher out there of the importance of first-party data and the importance of having authenticated consumer relationships.
Absolutely. Great, thanks for that. Finally, Andrew, what are your views?
Yeah, so I'm actually very interested in it to kind of piggyback on Travis's point. I think there could be significant share shift in the industry. So, I mean, essentially what Google's saying is we're going to resist supporting of these third-party standards. And so that's a bet on the effectiveness of some of the proposals that they're proposing. And if customers find more effective buying channels outside of Google, then that a lot of dollars could shift on that basis. And I think also it's important to note that there are going to be workarounds for DV360 saying that they won't target at an individual identity level. So intermediaries can still package deals on the basis of existing IDs and present those through DV360. So it still is transactable, but not in how previously could have been.
Okay, great. So I'd say fair to say the panel thinks they are not too concerned by the announcement, or in fact it's an opportunity, especially for first-party data providers and authenticated users. So glad to hear that's all positive. And on that point of having a lot of first-party data, David, next question for you from a true digital perspective, and interested in how much of your traffic is authenticated, and how do you plan to grow that pool of authenticated users that you have at True Digital?
Yeah. So currently our OTT service and platform is called True ID, and we don't enforce registration, and there's a significant amount of content that you can watch without logging in. I think roughly across all the different devices, it's about 60% of users who have registered. So there's still quite a big gap there in areas we need to focus on. I think there is something that the commercial and product teams are working on. That's a big focus for this year. Is trying to find that right balance between acquiring new users and getting them using our service, but also increasing our authentication. So some of the things that we're exploring at the moment are incentives and rewards for registration and login. So for example, things like True Points, which is our loyalty scheme program, but also early access windows to content. So we're certainly working with different departments throughout the business, including marketing, who I think have a key role to help try and spread that awareness around, getting users to register and sign in. And then on the product side, we're working on things that make that signing in process as seamless as possible. So things like biometrics or fingerprint login rather than passwords, which can be easily forgotten or misplaced.
Excellent. Good to get a little bit of insight there. I think you seem fairly well positioned. You've got great content, so I see no reason why people wouldn't want to be logging in or providing the details to get access to that. So good to hear. Cass, over to you. Let's interested in the sort of demand side view on how you're currently managing identity and OTT, and specifically, what are the challenges that you're facing when trying to solve for identity in CTV from the demand side?
Yeah, sure. I think when it comes to challenges, there's probably three key challenges that we think of. So the first is targeting, and the fact that there's a lack of persistent or standardized ID across connected TV and OTT makes it really challenging for advertisers to target their first-party data. Now, we've seen some great success on our own platform with our customers using our proprietary device graph to activate their first-party data on connected TV buys. The proliferation of devices in a household also means that users are consuming content across a range of devices, which can make it really challenging to target, but also to manage your ad experience, which brings me to the next challenge around measurement. And that's really about understanding what role does connected TV play in a brand's media mix. In 2020, we used this exact challenge to solve for measurement in this space and launched our connected TV white paper. And really that looked at how much of a reach driver is connected TV and whether it contributed to those lower funnel metrics such as site sales and conversions. And I think the biggest challenge to come, and the reason that we're all on this panel today, is really the industry shift to a cookieless future, which will see all facets of connected TV and OTT change from what we've previously known. So I think we'll see fewer signals that can be used to scale audience and analysis. There'll be a reduction in probabilistic identifiers, meaning it'll be very difficult for brands to continue to use their first-party data across connected TV. And I think as a result of this, what we'll see is that publishers will hold a lot more of the power. So it's likely that many publishers, such as Nine, will begin to build themselves out as destinations, much like Facebook and Google do today, to be able to help their marketers understand where and why their ads are.
Okay, excellent. Just a follow-up question there, Cass. I'm interested in whether you're able to effectively frequency cap across multiple platforms. How are you dealing with that?
Yeah, sure. So we can frequency cap in our DSP, both at a campaign level all the way down to a placement level if required. And given the nature of connected TV, the way that a brand sets up their connected TV campaigns really can impact their effectiveness to frequency cap. So we always provide recommendations around setting up across only the one SSP to avoid back-to-back issues, ensuring that we're only looking at one ad per pod of advertising, and then looking at things like only 3 ads per hour of viewing to ensure that we're really delivering that optimum brand experience. I think in the future, however, the ability to effectively frequency cap across many identity boundaries becomes near impossible. So it's really important that our brands recognise this and bring their teams together to ensure all the decisioning's in one place. So as an example, having the ad tech and the martech teams work together when they're actually building out and delivering these campaigns.
Great to hear. I can't agree more. Collaboration, I think, is what it's all about to try and deliver these solutions for our brands, isn't it? Okay, let's dig a little deeper into some of the alternative IDs available for publishers and buyers to explore. And Travis and Andrew, I think this is very much into your area. So do you want to perhaps, starting with Travis, talk a little bit about the merits of the different approaches?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, as we look at what can connect CTV IDs, today we're primarily looking at IP address. So IP address is the way that most marketers would address CTV users today on the open internet. Now, the truth is CTV is actually already a lot authenticated, but it's restricted back to a limited number of publishers. Just as on the total internet and display, it's mostly authenticated too. It's just Facebook and Google. In the CTV world, it happens to be Hulu and Roku. And so that premium CTV inventory where marketers often target, that's already protected and gated by authentications. And so the rest of the open internet offers IP and probabilistic targeting. There's certainly fingerprinting. I think we're seeing a crackdown on that, particularly by the browsers. And, it's our view that fingerprinting really doesn't lean into the privacy changes, and it's not long for this world. I think as we look at IP, it's probably going to go the same way as the third-party cookie. So IP addresses are eventually going to probably be, blocked or redacted in such a way that it become much less useful. And then we look at the same thing happening in CTV that we're seeing in the display world today. CTV moves over into a mixture of authenticated, contextual, and maybe there's some kind of cohort level targeting as well. Maybe that works well in the display world. So we see device manufacturers bring that into the CTV world as well. Definitely authenticated and contextual though. And I think just as in the display world today, just as in the CTV world today, authenticated is going to be the gold standard. It's what powers addressable TV. It's what powers the large walled gardens and the mini walled gardens. I think any publisher who's in the CTV space today should be talking about how they can upgrade their authentication strategy. Because, when you look at the problems that Cass was talking about of targeting, measurement, frequency capping, all of those can be addressed if you have appropriate identity and if you have that user level consent and that user level authentication.
Okay, great. Andrew, I'd love to hear your view on that as well. Do you have anything to build on there?
Absolutely. The dimensions to think about here are deterministic or authenticated as opposed to contextual. And then site-specific versus cross-site. So these are essentially how you can bucket the different tactics that you would end up taking as either a buyer or a publisher. And then evaluating vendors within each of these buckets would be a function of how much scale they're able to give to you how accurately and effectively they're able to solve a lot of the challenges that that Cass was mentioning before around targeting, measurement, etc. So mini tests you can run, a series of hypotheses to run it against each of these vendors. And it's a good way to start exploring as we think about how CTV evolves along the same lines as we're seeing in display.
Okay, great. Good insight. I'm interested as well, going back to Cass and David, just having understood a little bit more about these various identifiers and to hear a little bit about which ones you are pursuing and having a look at, starting off with Cass.
Yeah, so we're actively in conversations with various ID vendors. And I mean, it's, I think for us, the way that we approach ID vendors kind of looks at the 4 pillars, and it's the same 4 pillars regardless of who we talk to. So we look at consent and governance. What's the relationship with the users? Is there an established passing of consent and clarification of data ownership? We look at the company's values. So do they hold the same values as Adobe values? We look at adoption and viability. So do we expect this or do we expect adoption of this ID vendor within the ecosystem of DMPs, SSPs, and most importantly, our own clients? And we look at complexity as well. So will this ID increase complexity of builds significantly, which can slow down our ability to bring, value to our clients? But we're in conversations with lots of different ones at the moment.
Okay, great. Sounds like a rigorous process. David, at True, are you currently actively looking at ID alternatives and vendors out there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think sort of we're looking at internal and external solutions. So being part of a telco, phone number is already the main method of registration on our platform. But we also offer email sign up as well. I think some of the third parties we're looking at, a lot of the vendors are on this call today, of course. So obviously Pubmatic Solution and LiveRamp. We're also talking to the trade desk around the Unified 2.0 solution. And I think I joined a Video Week conference last week and a little bit around ID5 and InfoSump. So certainly a lot of discovery to take place. I think there's a lot happening in that space, so it's a lot to evaluate. But as part of the evaluation, we're sort of looking at things like integration, complexity, and how does it fit in with our product roadmap, but also the most important thing, which is the compatibility with our clients and SSPs and other trading partners.
Great. Yeah, I think you're in a very similar position to many others out there, which is really testing and trialing, trying to understand the different solutions and really work out what's best for your organization. So sounds like you guys are well on that path. Cass, just going back to you, interested as well in the risks and rewards of exploring more than one approach simultaneously. Do you sort of have a strong view on that at all?
Yeah, we do. So I think the risk, and I've mentioned this before, but looking at many ID solutions at the one time, making to speed to market, and that really what that means is that it slows down our ability to bring value and solutions to our customers. From a rewards perspective, I think at Adobe, we always build on our core strength, which is being agnostic and intentional. So for us, IDs aren't going to be a complete solution, but part of a broader strategy. And the reward is that, we're really future-proofing the advertising landscape for our customers by building a flexible and comprehensive ID strategy. Now, I think it's also important to note that we probably won't lock into specific inventory sets or specific identity vendors because we do believe that will reduce optionality for the brand. So we're looking 5 years down the track and making sure that, whatever we do now, whatever that world looks like, a brand can have the adaptability to move with its consumers.
Right. Great, yeah. Good to hear. I mean, I think Pubmatic with ID Hub has a very similar outlook, which is provide as many solutions as possible and be a facilitator in that to help the entire industry, really. David, you touched on a little earlier about trying a couple different ID solutions. Do you see any benefits or advantages of trying multiple solutions simultaneously?
Yeah, I think from a rewards perspective, working with as many brands as possible is the ideal scenario, and being able to address their needs in terms of targeting and segmentation. And I think, separate to that is being able to create that positive user journey for our users as well, across both content and ads. And then from a risk perspective, I think the complexity of working with too many vendors at once, and the challenges that creates, it's time consuming. And I think, you've got to make sure that you have that compatibility with the user experience and user journey as well.
Yeah. Good point. It is a fair bit of work to do. I think everyone's trying to make the process as simple as possible, but no doubt there is effort required on everyone's behalf to get this going. Okay, heading into the final straight. Travis, start off with you on this question, then I'll throw it to the rest of the panel. And just interested in vendors like LiveRamp and PubMatic, and what part they have to play in solving the identity issues that we have.
Yeah, no, so I think, at LiveRamp, we really see ourselves as a data connectivity platform and as middleware. So, all of us, except for David, we are all middleware. We are ad tech. David actually has consumer relationships. Consumers know his brand. Consumers don't really know LiveRamp's brand. They don't know the PubMatic. They know the Adobe brand, but less for AdCloud and more for Photoshop. And so, our role is really to connect that first-party relationship that David has with the first-party relationship that American Express, that Goldman Sachs, that Carrefour has, and to connect the marketer relationships together worldwide. And so, I really see our role as taking first-party identity on a publisher side and first-party identity on a marketer side, and making it easy for those to transact. The other part of an identity provider is we have to be interoperable. So we've talked about multiple solutions out here. There will be no one ID that's going to rule them all. It's not like Lord of the Rings. There's going to be one that wins out. We're going to have multiple identity solutions here, and they should make it easy to interact, because again, we don't own the data. We don't own the identity. We merely connect it. So if a publisher wants to change their identity strategy, switch over to another ID, that should be easy for them. If a marketer wants to move their data from one identity space to another, that should be easy. So we really see our role, again, as just making sure that all the different data points that are consented, that are authenticated, can be connected in a secure way, that it can be connected in a transparent way, and that we really put the power back where it belongs, in the hands of the publishers and the marketers, and away from ad tech.
Great. Yeah, I think this sort of transportability of the data is a theme that's coming through here, which is clearly important to everyone. Andrew, I'm sure you've got a couple of great ideas on how a company like PubMatic can help solve this identity issues.
Yeah, absolutely, Jason. I think, for all vendors out there, I think the table stakes are clearly data security and compliance. But more interestingly, for, as you said, a company like PubMatic in the SSP space, what more specifically can we do as compared to other vendors? And I think our opportunity is first and foremost around simplification. So cost reduction and making it more manageable to work with this increasingly fragmented space, as Travis described. So that's number one. And secondly, it's about activating across these different buying or inventory packaging tactics that are discussed, whether it be individual IDs at the user level, whether it be cohort-based buying off of contextual signals. We need to make this presentable in the bid stream. And then thirdly, finally, it's about workflow. So can we simplify the lives of the people who are purchasing in this way, such that this becomes a seamless transition from the ways they're used to buying today?
Okay, great. Good points. David, from your perspective, the part that companies like LiveRamp and PubMatic can play in the identity game?
Yeah, look, I think this is quite a new frontier sort of globally, but I think coming from an emerging market, the awareness and education piece is really important. I think for vendors to be able to guide publishers with a neutral view on how we can maximize that opportunity, but also have the optimal tech set up to satisfy product teams, and again, going back to protecting that user experience. And I actually really liked Andrew's comment at the start around PubMatic's focus around simplifying this process for publishers as well.
Okay, good point around simplifying things for publishers. Always trying to make things easier, absolutely. And Cass, finally, word from you on the part that PubMatic and the LiveRamps of the world can play in this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think education is a big one. I think connectivity is key as well. I think that whoever helps the publishers maximize their first-party data, the vendors that empower those direct relationships with the brand so that we can connect the publishers with the brands, and whoever helps publishers to transact how they want to transact in this new kind of world will be the ones that win in this space.
Excellent. Great insight. Thank you so much. A couple of sort of key takeaways for me. One, I think really good to be learning and understanding on the different types of identity solutions out there. I think there's a lot about transportability for the brands, facilitation, working together as an industry to try and solve this. CTV is going to be a huge growth area in the future, and I think identity is going to be an integral part of that. So I just want to really thank every one of you for joining me today. David Sky, Cass Tan, Travis Klinger, and Andrew Barron. Thanks so much, everybody, for your time, and look forward to catching up with all of you soon.